You wake up shivering. Your skin is slick with cold, clinging sweat. A dull ache sits inside your bones, making every subtle movement agonizing. Breathing feels exactly like swallowing shattered glass. Your heart is hammering against your ribs like a trapped animal. What is your first instinct? You reach blindly for your glowing phone, and you shuffle to a brightly lit bathroom. You swallow a small, mass-produced white pill. You drink a glass of purified water, and you go back to sleep under a heavy synthetic blanket. You assume you will recover in a few days. You are safe. For 99% of human history, this was not a hypothetical scenario. This was a terrifying, everyday reality. For roughly 300,000 years, you did not have a phone, and you did not have a corner pharmacy. You certainly did not have antibiotics. There was no scientific understanding of microscopic pathogens invading the bloodstream. A fever was a dark shadow creeping over the camp. A cough was a blaring warning sign, and survival was never guaranteed. How did your ancestors survive when their own bodies turned into battlegrounds? You might picture ancient humans as fragile victims of every passing germ. You might imagine entire tribes being wiped out by a simple cold. The truth is far more complex and entirely counterintuitive. Your prehistoric ancestors were not defenseless. They possessed a complex biological and social toolkit that kept humanity alive through countless invisible wars. Strip away the modern medical infrastructure. Travel back to a time before antibiotics. You are standing in a dense prehistoric forest. The air is thick with moisture. A member of your tribe is coughing uncontrollably, the sound echoing through the trees. What do? In the modern world, sick people are isolated in sterile rooms. Hands are sanitized with alcohol, and masks are worn to block invisible droplets. Your ancestors did not know what a virus was. They did not understand the mechanics of transmission. Yet, they instinctively developed behaviors acting as a primitive form of epidemiology. They moved constantly. They did not stay in one place long enough for a pathogen to take root in their environment. Mobility was their primary medicine. Think about your daily commute today. You pass hundreds of strangers, touch door handles touched by thousands, and breathe the recycled air of crowded spaces. This is a paradise for a virus. For early hunter-gatherers, this density simply did not exist. Your ancestors lived in small bands of 20 to 50 people. They roamed across vast, open landscapes. If a severe disease struck the group, it might devastate that specific family, and it might claim several lives. But it would stop there. The infection would burn out before it could jump to another tribe miles away. Isolation was naturally built into their way of life. But what happens when the disease is already inside your blood? You cannot outrun a fever. You cannot walk away from an infection in your lungs. Your body must fight. Your immune system is an ancient biological engine. It was forged in the brutal fires of prehistory. Every time your ancestors survived an illness, their genetic code remembered the victory. They passed that molecular memory down to their children, and they passed it down to you. Your DNA is a sprawling graveyard of defeated plagues. Look deeper into your blood. When you get a cut and it becomes infected, your white blood cells rush to the site. They are microscopic soldiers. They consume the invading bacteria. This complex defense mechanism was constantly adapting. But biology alone was not enough to guarantee survival. Humans needed something else. They needed each other. Look at the hard evidence buried in the dirt. Examine the bones to understand the compassion of the ancient world. In the rugged mountains of modern-day Iraq lies Shanidar Cave. It is a massive limestone cavern. Inside this cave, archaeologists discovered the remarkably preserved remains of a Neanderthal man universally known to science as Shanidar I. He lived roughly 45,000 years ago. His skeleton tells a story of immense suffering. He had suffered a catastrophic crushing blow to his head at a young age. He was partially blind, he had lost his right arm, and he had severe arthritis in his legs. He could not hunt, and he could not easily defend himself. How did he survive to an old age? The answer reshapes everything you think you know about ancient humanity. He survived because his tribe cared for him. The pioneering work of anthropologist Ralph Selecki at Shanidar Cave revealed early humans did not abandon their weak. They did not leave the sick to die in the wilderness. They brought him food, they protected him from predators, and they chewed his tough meat for him when his teeth failed. They nursed him through severe bacterial infections. This social safety net was a revolutionary survival strategy. Compassion was one of the earliest medical treatments. You take care of your family when they are sick. You bring them soup, and you ensure they are warm. This instinct is older than the human species itself, but compassion cannot cure a raging bacterial infection. Empathy cannot stop a massive parasite. Did your ancestors have any actual medicine? Did they possess any physical remedies to fight back against invisible predators? You might cynically assume prehistoric humans simply endured the pain until they either recovered or perished. But the archaeological record reveals a stunning level of resourcefulness. Your ancestors were the very first pharmacists. They did not synthesize chemicals in a laboratory. They learned to read the forest. They turned the wilderness into an apothecary. Consider the research of evolutionary geneticist Charlotte Holdcroft. She dedicated her career to studying ancient diseases by examining the genetic origins of human pathogens. Her work demonstrates early humans frequently survived traumatic injuries and severe chronic infections. The bones show undeniable signs of extensive healing. Bone tissue cannot heal from deep infections without time, rest, and supportive care. The physical evidence suggests they were actively treating their ailments. But what were they using to treat themselves? How did they soothe an aching tooth or a burning fever? Reconstruct a terrifying day in an ancient camp facing a medical emergency. You wake up and see the elders gathering specific plants. They are not foraging for calories. They are foraging for complex chemical compounds. They strip the bark from a willow tree and they boil it over the roaring campfire to create a bitter, dark tea. They give this hot tea to the members of the tribe suffering from fever. Why willow bark? It contains salicin. Salicin is the active chemical precursor to modern mass-produced aspirin. They did not know the chemical formula, but they knew it drastically reduced the heat of the body and eased the agonizing pain in the joints. They observed closely. They experimented relentlessly. They remembered everything. They also utilized tough fungi growing on the trunks of dead birch trees. The birch polypore mushroom is a remarkable natural remedy with powerful antibacterial and antiparasitic properties. When scientists discovered the mummified remains of Otzi the Iceman in the freezing European Alps, they found he was carrying pieces of this exact mushroom tied securely to his leather gear. He lived over 5,000 years ago. He was suffering from painful intestinal parasites, and he was actively treating himself with the prehistoric equivalent of a broad-spectrum antibiotic. But the medical toolkit of ancient humans went even further. Recent studies on ancient dental calculus, led by brilliant researchers like Christina Warrener, unlocked the microscopic secrets trapped securely in prehistoric plaque. Warrener and her team discovered Neanderthals living in El Cedron Cave in northern Spain were intentionally consuming specific medicinal plants. One young male individual had a massive, agonizing dental abscess. He was in tremendous, blinding pain. He also had a severe, debilitating intestinal parasite. The fossilized plaque on his teeth revealed he had been chewing on poplar tree bark, containing natural painkillers, and consuming a type of mold directly related to penicillium. He was essentially self-medicating with natural penicillin tens of thousands of years before Alexander Fleming discovered it in a sterile modern laboratory. You keep a plastic first aid kit in your bathroom. Your ancestors kept theirs growing in their environment. They chewed on specific leaves to numb oral pain. They applied mineral-rich clay to open wounds to draw out toxins and aggressively prevent infections. They used sticky honey as an antiseptic salve. Modern society looks at these ancient methods and calls them primitive, but they were highly effective, life-saving survival mechanisms. They were the true foundation of modern medicine. There was also a profound psychological component to ancient healing. When a modern doctor walks into a room in a pristine white coat, you feel an immediate sense of relief. You trust the towering authority of medicine, and the placebo effect begins to work instantly. Your ancestors had their own powerful version of this psychological armor. In many hunter-gatherer societies, healing is a massive communal event. When someone falls desperately ill, the entire camp gathers closely around the fire. They sing rhythmically, they chant. The healers enter a deep trance state to forcefully draw the sickness out of the patient. This intense communal support floods the patient's brain with endorphins and oxytocin. It significantly reduces crippling stress, lowers the racing heart rate, and perfectly optimizes the immune system for the terrifying fight ahead. In an unpredictable world, the absolute certainty that your tribe is fighting for your life is a powerful, undeniable medicine. Isolation kills quickly. Community heals deeply. Yet, there is a massive, counterintuitive twist to the history of human disease. You view progress as a straight line. You assume that as time moved forward, humans naturally became healthier and that civilization brought immense safety. The brutal truth is the exact opposite. The greatest health disaster in human history was not a sudden, unexpected plague. It was a conscious lifestyle change. It was the invention of agriculture. For hundreds of thousands of years, you were a mobile hunter-gatherer. You were remarkably healthy. Your daily diet was incredibly diverse. You moved far away from your own waste, and you lived in small, isolated groups. Then, roughly 12,000 years ago, everything changed. You planted seeds, you built permanent, heavy stone walls, and you stopped moving entirely. Agriculture was a trap. Examine exactly why this transition was so catastrophic for human health. When you settled down, you began to live directly alongside animals. You domesticated cows, pigs, and chickens, sharing your tiny living space with them. You drank their contaminated water, and you breathed their stagnant air. This created a highly dangerous biological bridge. Pathogens that had previously only infected animals suddenly mutated rapidly, crossing the barrier into human hosts. Deadly measles evolved from a virus infecting cattle. Lethal influenza came directly from farm ducks and captive pigs. Devastating smallpox emerged directly from livestock. The absolute deadliest diseases in human history simply did not exist in the human population before humans became farmers. You built villages, large towns, and towering, crowded cities. You packed thousands of people into tight, unsanitary spaces, living directly on top of your own accumulated waste. You created the perfect breeding ground for raging epidemics. The very walls protecting you from predators trapped you inside with invisible microscopic killers. Johannes Krause is a renowned geneticist at the Max Planck Institute. He uses cutting-edge technology to extract ancient DNA directly from the fossilized teeth of prehistoric skeletons. His dedicated team hunts for the genetic ghosts of ancient plagues, and his groundbreaking research has profoundly altered the timeline of human disease. Krause and his colleagues discovered the DNA of Yersinia pestis, the terrifying bacteria responsible for the bubonic plague, in the remains of humans who lived nearly 5,000 years ago. The plague was stalking humanity long before the Black Death devastated medieval Europe. But in the Stone Age, the plague functioned differently. It lacked the specific genetic mutation, allowing it to be transmitted by fleas. It was a localized, highly dangerous respiratory infection. It was deadly, but it could not cause a massive global pandemic. It was only when humans built massive trade networks and dense, rat-infested cities that the plague found its ultimate, devastating weapon. Human civilization aggressively amplified the disease. The infrastructure of progress became the fast highway for the pathogen. Imagine living in one of these early agricultural settlements. The harvest has been exceptionally poor. Your diet consists entirely of wheat and barley, missing the vital nutrients your hunter-gatherer ancestors consumed every single day. Your immune system is severely weakened by chronic malnutrition. The sanitation in the village is practically non-existent, and the communal water supply is contaminated. Suddenly, a strange traveler arrives from a distant settlement. He is sweating profusely. He is pale. He carries a newly mutated, contagious virus. In a hunter-gatherer tribe, This outbreak might kill a few people before quickly burning out. In your crowded farming village, the virus spreads exactly like wildfire. It jumps aggressively from house to house. The population is entirely stationary, and there is nowhere to run. The localized infection becomes a raging epidemic. The epidemic becomes a global pandemic. This is the great, undeniable paradox of human evolution. You traded your robust health for basic food security. You sacrificed the pristine immunity of the vast wilderness for the predictable, empty calories of the farm. When you look back at the paleopathological record, the physical evidence of this dramatic decline is undeniable. The skeletons of early farmers are significantly smaller than those of their hunter-gatherer predecessors. Their fragile bones show catastrophic rates of cavities, severe anemia, and chronic bacterial infections. They suffered from repeated, grueling bouts of severe illness. The transition to advanced civilization was paid for with a massive, terrifying drop in human health. But your ancestors miraculously survived. They ruthlessly adapted, and they slowly rebuilt. The human body is an incredible, highly adaptable learning machine. With every terrible wave of disease sweeping through these early cities, the survivors emerged with significantly stronger immune systems. The evolutionary genetic pressure was immense. If you somehow survived a plague, your children directly inherited a slightly better defense mechanisms against that specific pathogen. You are the direct descendant of the ultimate survivors. You carry the genetic legacy of every single ancient outbreak. Think about the sheer, unimaginable resilience required to endure this dark era. You do not know what germs actually are. You deeply believe illnesses are caused by angry spirits or bad air. You watch your neighbors fall ill and perish with terrifying speed. You have zero scientific tools to understand the invisible war happening in their blood. Yet you stubbornly continue to care for the sick. You continue to search desperately for natural remedies in the surrounding woods. And you continue to rebuild your shattered community after the outbreak finally passes. This deep psychological fortitude is perhaps the greatest survival tool of all. Early humans brilliantly utilized a concept modern society still relies on today: quarantine. While they did not understand germ theory, they understood basic cause and effect. Anthropological studies of modern isolated tribes show that when a severe, completely unknown illness strikes, communities often establish clear, rigid boundaries. They entirely avoid contact with neighboring groups. They drastically alter their social rituals to minimize physical touch. They instinctively recognize the profound danger of proximity. In ancient times, if a sickness rapidly entered a camp, the healthy might relocate entirely, leaving behind brave volunteers who had already survived the disease to care for the newly infected. They observed astutely that those who recovered rarely caught the exact same illness twice. They discovered the concept of acquired immunity through careful observation. They firmly designated the survivors as the primary caretakers. This incredibly intuitive understanding of epidemiology saved countless lives. They did not need a powerful microscope to see the pattern of infection. They simply watched closely how the dark shadow moved from person to person. Fast forward to the modern era. Look at how you handle a recent global health crisis. You isolate yourself inside, track the rapid spread of the pathogen, and rely entirely on the caretakers to nurse the sick. You lean on the incredible processing power of your immune system while you wait patiently for medicine to catch up. The physical tools have completely changed. You have sterile hospitals and massive global data networks, but the foundational, instinctual behaviors are exactly the same. The deep instincts guiding a prehistoric tribe through a deadly winter outbreak are the exact same instincts guiding you today. You separate, you care, you adapt, you survive. The next time you catch a cold, take a quiet moment to appreciate the biological miracle happening inside your body. You feel completely miserable, but your immune system is actively accessing a chemical database hundreds of thousands of years old. Every single fever is a physical historical reenactment of an ancient battle. Your white blood cells are aggressively deploying tactics perfected in the freezing caves of Ice Age Europe and the sun-baked savannas of ancient Africa. You are not fragile. Your body is an impenetrable fortress built securely upon the fossilized bones of millions of survivors. The modern world makes you feel vulnerable to microscopic threats. You read the news and fear the next massive pandemic. You worry constantly about the incredibly dense populations of your massive cities. And you stress deeply about the global interconnectedness allowing a virus to travel across the planet in 24 hours. But your ancestors faced truly invisible terrors with absolutely nothing but primitive stone tools, wild plants, and profound, unwavering compassion. They endured completely without the immense safety net of modern science. They relied entirely on mobility, deep intuition, and tight community. They survived so you could exist. You wake up shivering. Your skin is slick with cold, clinging sweat. But this time, you know exactly how many survived before you.